So I think with all of that, we will get started. So good morning and afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for the beginning of day 3 of our 5-day virtual conference, Donor Experience Week. For those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Samantha Lego. I'm Keela's marketing director. We have Ines in the background fielding all of your technical questions, so feel free to say hi. I'd just like to start by acknowledging that here in Vancouver, we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and I want to give thanks for their generosity and hospitality on these lands and waters. We are very excited to be able to facilitate 10 sessions and 5 lunch and learns over the course of this week. And this wouldn't be possible without the help of all of our amazing speakers who have agreed to volunteer their time, as well as to our sponsors, Imagine Canada, Pano, and the Good Partnership. Thank you. As a housekeeping reminder, all of these sessions will be recorded and you will receive both the slide deck and the recording after the conference. Lastly, I want to mention that Keela's main focus since COVID-19 has been on education and powering profits through this new normal. Events like Donor Experience Week, yes, but we are also launching Keela U, which is a free crash course dedicated for small to medium nonprofits looking to grow their skills, be more analytical, and become more agile in this digital age. You can sign up for the first chapter of Keela U, set to be released on October 1st by following the link, which I believe Ines is popping into the chat now. We're very lucky to have our speaker here with us today. Julia Campbell is a social media and storytelling strategist, author, and speaker. You may know her well from our previous Donor Experience Week, Plugged In, as well as the phenomenal work she does in the sector. Through speaking, training, and consulting, Julia shows social purpose organizations how to use social media and storytelling. She was recently named one of the top 25 nonprofit IT influencers to follow in 2019 by BizTech magazine. Today, she's speaking on the power of storytelling in the digital age. Participants will learn the secrets on how to create impactful and an effective message for all digital channels. You'll also get access to the Storytelling in the Digital Age workbook to begin collecting, crafting, and sharing stories for your organization. We encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A box throughout the presentation, and then we'll get to them at the end. We also invite you to take the conversation a step further in our Donor Experience Week community forum, which is our virtual attempt at networking in the lunch line between sessions. So you can connect with your peers, discuss what you've learned, and provide your insights and feedback by following the link that Ines has also posted in the chat. Lastly, I'd like to mention that by attending this webinar, you are eligible to receive 1 CFRE credit. If you check the chat, there will be a link with the Donor Experience Week CFRE tracking sheet. You can download your copy and track which CFRE sessions you've attended. And with that out of the way, I'd like to give a very warm and special welcome to Julia, who will be telling us our story as we start off day 3.
Yay, thank you. All right, let me start sharing my screen, making sure that everyone can see and hear me today. So we're going to start from the beginning here, but thanks for that warm welcome. I'm really thrilled to be here today, especially to talk about one of my absolute favorite topics, the art of storytelling in the digital age. So we just read a very long and detailed bio about me, but a couple of other things that I did want you to know, because it's definitely influenced how I'm working in this new environment during the pandemic. A mom of 2, which means I'm an accidental homeschooler. My kids are remote learning right now. I have a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. I have owned my own business since 2010. I published a couple of books, which are kind of like my other babies. That's what I call them. And I have been in your shoes, and that's probably what you really need to know about me, that I am a former marketing and development director / duties as assigned / all the plate spinning, all the events, volunteer coordination, all of it. I've pretty much done everything in the sector except for be a founder of a nonprofit. So if you are a small organization, you're struggling to really figure out this digital landscape and navigate your way through, I'm here for you. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you want to get the workbook, just text the word workbook to 33777 and you will get it sent to your inbox. So you'll have to give me your email address. You'll get it sent to you. And you'll also remember, you're going to get the slides, the recording, and there's going to be Q&A after this. So what I encourage you to do is, if you have questions, I know that you will, put them in the questions area of the toolbar, because we're going to do a couple of exercises where I'm going to have you write in the chat, and I just don't want your question to get lost. But of course, we'll find it for you if you happen to type into the chat as well. I will probably not be taking questions throughout, as I feel like it kind of interrupts the flow and I'm trying to concentrate on the slides and the content. But if there is a question I do see coming up again and again and again, I'll keep an eye on it. But I will dedicate some time for questions at the end. So never fear. So we're going to cover quite a lot today. So we need to kind of get started. We're going to figure out how best to use digital storytelling and these kinds of tools and these tactics to build and deepen relationships with donors, what kind of stories work best, and then of course, how to create a system, because I'm all about systems, tactical, practical application of everything you learn. And I will show you a few tools that I have in my digital storytelling toolbox. Now, I first got started with storytelling when I served in the US Peace Corps in Senegal in West Africa. I went a couple of years after college. And when you are a volunteer in the Peace Corps, at least where I was, I know a lot of stations are different. A lot of countries, all the countries are different. But the place where I was, not only did the village not speak English where I was placed, they didn't speak French other than the teacher in the village and the doctor that I was working with. There was no running water and there was no electricity. And it was a completely different culture, obviously, than what I had grown up with. So I had to spend a lot of time on storytelling, getting people to know me, to like me, and to trust me, because I was a health educator, basically a marketer. I was running public health education campaigns around how to eliminate malaria through using malaria nets, how to have better maternal health, how to prevent STDs, and all of that kind of stuff. No one's going to listen to you if they don't know you, like you, or trust you. So this is really when I started to understand the power of storytelling. Also, the power of storytelling to change hearts and minds. I certainly was not going to come in there and start telling these women, who a lot of the women that I was working with, they had had 6 kids, 7 kids, 8 kids, and I had never had children at that point. I was 22. So trying to create that connection is through stories, through really, really great stories. So the fundamental human nature, the stories that we tell create the world that we live in. And that's why they're so vital and so important. So a lot of the strategies I'll teach you are evergreen and they can be adapted into the digital age. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to just focus on the shiny new tools that are going to go away tomorrow. We want to focus on the evergreen strategies we can take with us and mold into each channel. Now, a lot of storytelling presentations focus on the neuroscience of storytelling. This is my only slide on the neuroscience. I'm not a neuroscientist, but research has shown that stories are the best way not only to grab attention, but also to keep it. They're also the best way to get people to process information and hold on to it and retain it. And any storytelling presentation is not going to be complete without this quote from Tyrion Lannister. Obviously, I remember when I saw the last episode of Game of Thrones and my husband said to me, "Are you going to put that on a slide?" And I said, "Of course I'm going to put that on a slide. It's the greatest quote of all time. What unites people? Armies, gold, flags? No, it's stories. Stories are timeless." So think about ways that you can adapt this kind of power and potential. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The other most important piece of storytelling, and our duty as fundraisers, our duty as marketers, is to create this shared identity with our donors and supporters. This is how you create a sustainable fundraising program. If I say, this organization is part of who I am, it's part of my worldview, it's part of what I believe, and stories can help you do that. So I want to encourage you, as we're talking through the steps today, that we need to stop thinking of storytelling as a megaphone to promote the agenda, but we need to think of it as a gift for our supporters. So we're going to go through the 3-part digital storytelling framework to make it very actionable, and so you can create a plan to kind of go forward to collect and craft these stories. Okay, and I'll share the number for the workbook at the end. So the number 1 step, the very, very first step, is collect the best kinds of stories. So obviously we want to collect the best kinds of stories, but how can we create a plan for collection? collection, reflection. We want to be meaningful. We want to be intentional, but we also don't really want to rule anything out right off the bat. So you want to start with why. Why are you collecting the stories? If you work with me as a client, if you work with me one-on-one, if you take any of my online courses, I always start with why. If you don't know where you're trying to go, how are you going to build your roadmap to get there? So we have to know where we're trying to go. And a fundraising storytelling campaign is different than an advocacy storytelling campaign, or maybe a membership drive campaign or corporate sponsorship drive. So we have to know why we're collecting the stories. We have to sort of have the end in mind a little bit. And we have to be able to identify what success would look like if we were to achieve our digital storytelling goals. So we have to focus a little bit and a lot actually in the beginning on the why. Then we focus on the who. When we're collecting the best kinds of stories for our audience, we have to know who our audience is. And this is especially important when you're talking to a digital audience, because think about the way we use digital tools. We're very used to niche groups. We're used to personalization. We're used to segmentation. We're not used to being kind of lumped in with everybody else. So you have to know your audience. Who are your supporters? What do they value? What kind of language do they use? Why are they interested in your work? What really drives them? What motivates them? What keeps them up at night? We have to do a lot of introspection and think about your audience, the audience that you have already and the audience that you're trying to attract and to bring in to the fold. So what I want you to do is take a minute, and what I want you to do after this is kind of like a homework assignment. Think about the top 5 reasons that your supporters get and stay involved. And actually, if you want to type it into the chat, I'd be happy to read some of these out. So let me open up the chat again. If you want to tell me at least 1, 2, 3 of the biggest reasons why your supporters have decided to give you money, to give you time, to give you their attention, to give of themselves, why do they do this? So Joan says vested interest. Yes. Stephanie, because they're grateful for the experience we provided to them. Yes. Astrid says give back to the community. They believe in our mission, the impact of the gifts sent, success stories. They trust us to do the work they care about but cannot do themselves, to give hope. They value our programs, the belief in the mission. They benefited from the programs. I love these. Engagement with the mission. Previous recipients or know someone who has received help from us. They value our achievements. They believe in the collective effort to innovate healthcare. Oh, I love that. They believe in the collective effort to XYZ, solve the problem that you're solving, not necessarily healthcare. Want to connect to neighbors. I love these. If you could just hit all panelists and attendees when you're typing in the chat so that all the attendees can see these fantastic reasons. They've had a crisis in their own life and they believe in how we can help. They volunteered. Memory. Okay, so what you see some themes here, right? We tend to only focus on, what I love about all of this, by the way, is that you answered exactly what I had hoped you would answer, that I don't always get these answers. But you focused on the benefits. You focus on the benefits to the person. Because when we give because it means something to us. We've been helped by the organization. We have a distinct connection to the organization. We know someone who's been helped. We believe in this. We value this. This is what we stand for. Those are the kinds of stories that we need to be collecting, because talking in about the features of what you do is not nearly as compelling and interesting to your supporters as talking about the benefits. All of you have said this. They're interested because of their own vested self-interest. And that doesn't mean they get a t-shirt, and that doesn't mean they get a pen or they get their name on a wall. That means they have a vested self-interest. So play into that. Make sure you're constantly reiterating. Remember why you give to us. Remember why you're here, and creating and crafting stories around those ideas. So these are absolutely fantastic. I love when people understand that donors give because they really believe in something. They give because they believe in something. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day for us to remember as fundraisers. So what are the 4 types of stories that we need to collect? And thank you so much for participating in that. The 4 best kinds of stories that work for nonprofits on digital channels, you're going to have probably a million other ones that you want to add to this list, but we're just going to go through my top 4. Of course, we can't get away from an impact story, a great impact story, because think about those 5 reasons. Think about what you just wrote down, what you typed in the chat. All of your supporters are interested in the impact that you're having. This doesn't mean that you have to interview Mary and talk to her about her domestic violence experience. It just means you have to find a way to either talk to an employee about Mary's experience, or you have to find a way to get her story and tell it so there's no identifying details. You don't have to share every identifying detail and a name and a face and a video of all of your clients in order to get an impact story. But this is what works, and this is what works in fundraising. These are not data-driven. They're very much emotional, focused on the benefits, not the features, which all of you did a really fantastic job pulling out the benefits and not the features. And this kind of story is not so much about what they went through, but how they felt. So it wasn't, Mary came to our food bank, she was hungry, she got some food and she left. That's not really a story. That's a recounting of something that happened. And that's talking more about the features of your program than the benefits. So think about how you can collect this story, focusing on what they went through, how they felt, and not so much the steps that they took. Also, an impact story is a fantastic way to address knowledge gaps about the population that you serve and about the program that you're running and the problem that you're solving. Rosie's Place, one of my favorite organizations in Boston, they do fantastic work on social media, bringing you really in, crafting a hook, having that emotional connection, and then asking you to take it a step further by clicking on the bio or by watching a video. St. Jude's Children's Hospital, they send a weekly patient story every week. I don't read all of them necessarily, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about email, but they have the hook, they have the emotional journey, they have the character, they have all of the elements that are going to help me open and read and look at this email and pay attention to it. Goodwill, there's so much that's not normal about raising a kid with a disability. So what I love about stories that start with a statement that your audience will agree with, okay? There's so much that's not normal about raising a kid with a disability, but Goodwill's LifeWorks is something with a focus and routine he can do every day. So is this something that your audience would be able to identify with? And this is Amira, one of my favorite organizations, and they help and save women and men and children from sex trafficking rings, basically, in New England and kind of all across America now. They don't ever share identifying details. They don't have videos of survivors talking, but they still manage to pull you in and share a great story, even if it's just a little story. They love to share about a woman being 30 days sober, or a woman being 30 days into getting her GED, just these stories that really humanize the people that they serve and break down a lot of the barriers and a lot of the myths and misconceptions. The second kind of story is the insider story, which might be a little bit easier to get, but maybe not, depending on who you work with. Who works with and for your organization? That's you, and that's everybody else in your organization, even if it's just 2 people. Why do they do it? What have they learned? What's been their best experience and what's been the hardest for them? And give us that behind the scenes insight that we kind of crave. Now, we don't crave this behind the scenes insight because we're rooting for you to fail. It's not like a reality show where you just want the housewives to go have dinner and fight, which I don't anymore. I'm so bored of the housewives right now, but nobody wants to watch that anymore because it's boring. But what we want real behind the scenes insight into real people and real problems. And this will humanize your brand. This will help us really understand that there are human beings behind this work. which is so vital right now when we're behind Zoom screens. We can't network. We can't go to conferences. You can't have a virtual tour of your space. Maybe you can, I don't know. I'm in Massachusetts, museums and things are opening up slowly and slowly and slowly, but you certainly can't do it the way you used to do it. So how are you continuing to humanize your brand and put a face on it in this virtual and digital world that we're living in? Think about getting quotes and a photo from your staff member. That might be a great way to share some stories and really deepen and strengthen that relationship with your donors. Because remember, digital tools are fantastic to do the know, like, and trust, which we all need before we can actually get a gift or ask anyone to change their behavior. They have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. If you're doing a storytelling campaign and you're asking the public to share stories, your staff and your coworkers, they better be prepared to share their stories first, because people are looking for examples. They're also looking for how you're connecting to the cause. Are you walking the walk? Are you talking the talk and walking the walk? So don't be afraid of sharing these fantastic stories or even little vignettes or anecdotes from your staff members. Now, a question that I get pretty frequently is, well, my executive director doesn't want to be on camera. I hate being on camera, and nobody wants to be on camera. So a little trick that I've learned, even though, I don't want to generalize younger people in any way, but in my experience, younger people are much more comfortable being on camera than older people. That's a complete generalization, obviously. But if I had to say which generation was more excited about being on camera, it's not really the baby boomers, but it's maybe Gen X. If you have any kind of Gen X, even like younger millennials in your office, even just asking them, how do I get more comfortable on camera? Are you comfortable on camera? If they say yes, ask them for tips. You can always ask them to be on camera. Of course, they're not a blanket statement for all Gen Xers, but this is just something I've noticed almost across the board in the nonprofits I've worked in. Okay. Third type of story, your donor story. This is the powerful form of social capital when people can see that other people are giving. Why did they give? Why do they continue to give? What does this mean to them? What do they value? What are their ethics? What are their beliefs? And why is this a cause that's very important to them? If you can get it in the first person, that's fine. Sometimes your donors, maybe you can interview them or just do a quick little snapshot. I know that I always recommend doing donor spotlights, especially when you're doing a virtual event, doing a little spotlight of your corporate sponsor rather than just putting their logo up. Because their logo is not interesting to anyone at all, especially your participants in your event, right? They want to know who's behind this logo, and then they might become a little bit of intrigued, and it's a win-win for you, for the sponsor, and for the person that's looking at it on social media. Making these great little graphic quotes. I hope my donation will help other people struggling with finding their way in this world, right? And I identify with that, absolutely, that statement. Okay, so we've gone through the 3 types of stories. This is number 4, the community story. This encompasses everything. So this encompasses almost everybody else that we haven't talked about already. If you have any kind of well-respected community member that you can get a testimonial from, this could be the chair of the local chamber of commerce. This could be a city council member. This could be a teacher. This could be a police officer. This could be a firefighter. I mean, when I worked in a domestic violence shelter and we were always looking for testimonials, we talked to social workers and we talked to teachers and principals. We talked to a lot of police officers. We talked to people in the courts, people that other people respected, and they could see how our mission was touching each of the aspects of this community. And that's the key. All your stories are going to provide a well-rounded perception of your organization. You're never going to find one story that's going to rule them all, like the one ring that rules them all. You're not going to find that one story. So your stories should be like a big connect the dots, and they should help connect the dots to your supporters, or they should be like, another metaphor, little breadcrumbs kind of along the path. Tell stories of your volunteers. Jump on things like National Volunteer Week, National Nonprofit Week. whatever your cause and awareness days are for your particular industry. Create this little template graphic, do a volunteer spotlight once a week, once a month. Showcase the fantastic in-kind donors that you have. So I love this post because this is Pine Street Inn where I live in Boston. And if you're from Massachusetts, you know the two major furniture stores are Bob's Furniture and Jordan's Furniture. So when Jordan's Furniture saw that Bob's Furniture donated a bunch of furniture to the Pine Street Inn, of course they wanted in, and they made it this whole competition with their employees and who could donate the most furniture. They did it on social media and it was really fun. But if they hadn't seen this, if they hadn't heard that story, they would never have known and they would never have done that. My biggest piece of advice when you're collecting stories. So tell us your story. Okay. This is very intimidating for anyone when you're trying to draw out what you want them to say or kind of guide them along the path of telling their story. When you're collecting a story, ask leading questions. What's your favorite memory? How has our organization made you feel? How did you feel when you first discovered us? What is one reason that you continue to support us? What impact have you witnessed in the community because of our work? So try to step back from tell me a story. I need a story for the email newsletters. Anybody have a story? And frame it, ask leading questions, make it very, very easy to do. Okay, so I have a really quick exercise for us. I want us to tell me what you do in 6 words. So, but before you do it, there has to be an emotional connection to a real person. Katie steals to feed her kids. It can't be Goodwill Detroit serves children every day. That can't be it. You cannot be the character. Your organization cannot be the character in this 6-word story. There has to be a real person. There has to be something that happens. So I want you to, now this, I normally work with clients on this for about an hour, but we're going to have like a couple minutes. But once you get started, you see how difficult it is, but then you actually can see how powerful it is. So I'm hoping that you'll bear with me and we can do this. I know Stephanie said, I don't watch The Housewives anymore. I used to all the time. And so let me know your 6-word story. And this is another exercise that you can do with your board. You can do with your volunteers at orientation. You can do via Zoom call. Oh, can you put the 3 things back on the screen? Yes. So the call to action, you don't have to have it. Katie steals to feed her kids. You can change your story. They gave me my first start. Now that's good, but remember, we are not the protagonist in this story. So Johnny got a first start here, something like that. David beat diabetes by living an actual life. It's okay if it's 8 words. It's definitely the right track here. Michelle's giving her children a future. Ariana dances to express herself. Alan fights to create a safe future. Kieran changes lives an hour at a time. Emily went home healthy. Fido was rescued from horrific cruelty. Yes, Les learned to coexist with snakes. Hi, Melissa. Oh, I know the snake. The snakes, it's the snake, not the snake sanctuary. It's the snake conservation group, right? Tell me the name of your organization again. I love your mission. Jenna wants to be independent. Diana finally feels safe. Oh my gosh, that is so good. Thomas can send his kids to school. These are really, really good. David found his voice on stage. Okay, so I could read these all day because these are really great. Advocates for snake preservation. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, Kathy lost weight. I would say Kathy lost weight using this book, using my health book. Marsha struggles to stay alive every day. Now, all of these could be email subject lines, right? So can't you see how, first of all, they're all not telling you the whole story, but they're telling you enough that your interest is piqued and you're curious. I'm actually really curious. Tim learned to live after his wife died. Oh, I know. Gabriella found her new creative expression. Brian broke the cycle of poverty. Wow. Naomi's beat childhood cancer. These are really fantastic. I hope that we can probably share these in some way. We can get the chat. And I'm happy to try to do that. But wow, these are fantastic. So I just want to encourage you to see how your mission is not getting distilled. It's not dumbed down, but it's creating that hook for people to want to learn more and to pique their curiosity. So write these down, remember these, and I want you to use them as an email subject line. I want you to use them as a blog post title. I want you to use them as the title of a video. These are amazing titles for videos because you know a little bit so that you want to watch the video, but it doesn't give you everything. Because we want to hear names. We know your organization is great. We don't want to hear necessarily about your organization. We want to hear about the impact that your organization has created. These are fantastic. So use this exercise. Use it with your board, use it with staff, use it in orientation, and you'll probably create a ton of different content that's then going to really help you say, oh, this could be a story. This could be a video. Even if John isn't a real person, even if Alex and Sarah and Avery and all of these people, even if they're not real people, they will help form the seeds for you for a story that you can then grow. So thank you for that exercise. You guys really knocked it out of the park. Usually I get mission statements or like cut and paste things from the website, or I get like some legal jargon, but these are really great. Karen couldn't buy presents at Christmas. I mean, that's a video that I would watch. Linda learned how to manage her money. I love the word finally, adding the word finally. That's great. Thank you. Okay, we've got to move right along. We got a lot more to cover, but that was fantastic. I don't want you to forget that exercise though. Always come back to it. Put your 6-word story on the wall. Try to write 6-word stories every time you get together with your staff and with your board. Where are other places that you can find stories? Well, we do need to start thinking like journalists. We need to start thinking like detectives. And we need to not edit before we've already done the story, like not edit ourselves before we've even compiled a group of story ideas. And then also, what are people talking about? You also want to look at everything you've already created, because why reinvent the wheel? Look at all those annual reports and newsletters and grants and events and agendas and everything. See if there are names that you can pull out. See if there are stories you can pull out. Re-examine things that you've already done. That's so hugely impactful, because you don't want to always have to reinvent the wheel, especially if you're new to your job. Look through all those banker's boxes if you have them, if you're back in your office, or even if you're in your home office, look through all the digital files, see what you can pull from there. Those thank you letters. And then of course, just talking and talking and talking continually to your community. So if you do want to collect stories from your community, it is difficult to do, right? You're going to have to make it very easy. You can do what Komen Florida did here and make it very low touch and not very hard to accomplish. So it's certainly possible, but I would say focus on the stories that you have first. Okay, so we're only at phase 2, craft the stories in a compelling way. And I want to walk you really briefly through the captivating story building blocks. And remember, you will get the slides and the recording after this. Really, all captivating stories have 5 things, and you could do this in a tweet, and you can actually do this in a 6-word story, maybe without the call to action at the end. That's CTA. But I'm going to go through each of these 5 pieces, these 5 building blocks to a captivating story. Number 1, hook. The best email I've ever received is from September 2015, Plumber Youth Promise. Subject line was, if I died, who would come to my funeral? The hook, the character, and the call to action was donate. There are stakes. This has all of it, but I wanted to draw this email out for the hook. Piques your interest, brings you in, makes you learn more. That time I almost died in Honduras. We have to go now. This is an art. This is absolutely an art to be able to pull out these leads, to pull out the most interesting angle and the most interesting hook. This is a skill, and it doesn't come overnight. So look, what I do, I just take dozens of screenshots and examples, and I've got Google Drives filled with examples of blog posts I like, emails I like, social media posts that I like. This Instagram post tells a story in just a really quick Instagram post. So it's visual in nature because Instagram is a visual storytelling platform. And it has the hook, and it has the compelling character, and it has the stakes. There have to be stakes. What are the stakes involved if this does not get solved? And what do you want me to do next? So this is a quote directly from Deborah. You don't have to be a professional copywriter. You don't have to write a novel in order to craft a powerful story. But the hook, the compelling character, it has all of the elements. The emotional response, the stakes. Like I said, stakes, a story without stakes is just an essay. It's just a recounting of things that happen. What's actually at stake here? You can see what's at stake. I mean, her house is destroyed. She tells you, my house is completely destroyed. I'm just trying to put our life back together. Those are the stakes. And then really simply bringing it all together to support families like Deborah's, visit the link in our profile. Okay, so those are, I mean, really, because I went pretty quickly, I'll go through it again. The hook, the character, the stakes, some details, what makes this different from any other story that I'm telling you? What are the details? And the details oftentimes could be in the visual. They can be in the picture, or they can be in the video that you're telling. So use each of these examples. I have many, many more examples to share with you. And I also am willing to share all of my Google Drives with you. I think I might have links at the end to my Google Drives of tons of examples. So I'm just going to take a sip of water. Okay, moving right along. We're at phase 3. Of course, you don't do all these phases in an hour, but I just am giving you the tools. So you create your system, you create your plan, and then once you have the story, it's going to take a little bit longer to do all of these phases. But phase 3, sharing the stories on the best platforms for you. Now, your stories are the gold. I love this quote. Think of the story itself as gold. You mine the gold, you capture the story. Then you bring it back to your office, and you need to pound that gold into different shapes and sizes, depending on whom you're talking to, and also where you're telling it. So a story and a video that you create for your 50th anniversary of your organization is going to be different than an Instagram story that you share backstage in an event. So it's all about context. It's all about where you're sharing it. Now, the 3 main places to feature and promote your stories are, of course, your website, your email, and your social media channels. And that's what we'll talk about now. So I'm going to show you some examples of how organizations have shared stories on their website, their email platform, and their social media channels. Denver Rescue Mission, stories of changed lives. They feature a story, they feature lots of stories of their clients. That's the impact story, that's the trajectory, and that's Denver Rescue Mission right here, and we can check that out. And then St. Baldrick's also is one of my favorites, and they have a fantastic blog where they share stories in different categories. So I kind of want to show you. So they actually separate out their blog into families, kids with cancer, survivors, teens and young adults. If you have the ability to do that, it's certainly very impactful and your audience will appreciate it. But they talk in real time. This is from August. They're still communicating during coronavirus because childhood cancer does not go away just because there is a global pandemic. So they're still telling stories. There just might be different stories. And then Denver Rescue Mission has an entire feature on their website, Stories of Changed Lives. Great eye-catching visuals to kind of draw you in, and then really great blog headlines to give you more context and to get you really interested and excited, because it's not just about gaining that attention, it's about keeping that attention and getting that retention. So you want attention, and then you want information retention at the end of the day as well. Your email marketing should be pretty much focused on stories. So let's ask ourselves, what do we do when we're not fundraising? How do we communicate throughout the year when we don't have a fundraising campaign, because I know what's going to happen on December 1st, which is Giving Tuesday. I'm going to hear from a lot of organizations that I didn't hear from once since the last Giving Tuesday last year, or since Giving Tuesday now, which was in May, right? So don't be that person. Don't be that organization. Show me the impact. Use email to create a relationship with me, to share accomplishments and achievements, and send shorter emails more frequently. Do not send that 12-page email newsletter once a quarter, because if I delete that by accident or say I don't get it or it goes to spam, then the next time I hear from you will have been 6 months. And that's unacceptable, really, to not talk to your donors for 6 months. I personally think, I don't think you need to do something insanely expensive, but you might want to send out just a little update. It could be 2 paragraphs. It doesn't have to be that intense. And these are the kinds of emails that I'm talking about. So sharing a personal story, having it be from a person. You see it's from the executive director. It's written like a letter. You'll see all of these emails. They're just one column, very simple, focused on the visual, and they have one call to action. You don't have to ask for a donation with every email. In fact, I would not recommend doing that. Oftentimes you could just say, here's an update, here's what we're doing, here's a couple pictures, there you go, end of the day, or end of story. So don't overthink it, but you do want to make sure that every time you're sending an email, there's a reason. But oftentimes it could just be, here's an update, here's a great story of something that happened at our organization and we wanted to share it. We don't want anything back right now, but we just wanted to share it with you. And then of course, social media, because if you know me, you know I'm big on social media storytelling and using social media. Let's take it back. Let's start sharing great stories on social media. Let's start talking about social change on social media. So the important thing to know about effective storytelling on social is it does need to be short and sweet. It needs to be poignant. You have to have eye-catching visuals. I mean, you really can't get away from that. And it does have to have a specific call to action if you're trying to get someone to do something. So what I mean by that is if you're trying to get someone to donate, you should ask. If you're trying to get someone to read the blog, ask. If you're trying to just share a story and not ask for anything, say, you know, comment and tell us why this story meant something to you. There should always be a call to action, but it shouldn't be go to our website, go to our website, go to our website with every post. You should mix it up a little bit. So this has all the elements of a captivating story. It's got the hook. It's got the compelling character. It's got the details. It's got the emotion, and it's got the call to action. And the stakes, what are the stakes involved? Same with Best Friends Animal Society. And the reason why I brought this one up is because I love the call to action. Can you give just $5 to help Fiesta and other animals like her? So it's telling the story to grab our attention and get our emotions up, and then asking me for something very specific. That works on social media. You might not need to say that in an email, but on social media, we're scrolling, we don't know what to do. Also, click the donate button below. That helps me even more because I might not see that donate button. You can't assume that people know what you want them to do next. Boston Children's, they don't even necessarily ask for a call to action. They do say, help us send birthday wishes, which is like a call to action. So you could do something like that to get more engagement on your social media, or just jump on things like Carers Week, jump on trending topics that make sense to you, encourage your audience to share their stories and talk about how your work is impacting them. And this is a great use for Twitter. Not a lot of people are sharing great video on Twitter, a lot of links. So it's a good way to stand out on that particular platform. Instagram, you can do an Instagram story takeover. I'm working on this with Boston Public Schools right now. Of course, there's a lot of red tape and a lot of, we have to manage the story takeover. I don't mean we hand the reins over and the passwords to just anybody. So we manage it, but we're asking for stories. And that way you get exposure to someone else's network and someone else's friends and family. And you're also going to get some pretty compelling content that you can use over and over again. So your new mantra is less is more, focus over frantic, quality over quantity, quality over quantity. That's your new mantra. Before we go to questions, I want to share with you a few tools that I use, a few battle-tested tools that you have to have in your digital storytelling studio. All of you probably know about Canva. If you don't, this was worth the free price of admission to this virtual conference. Canva is your one-stop shop. It's even got video editing now. It has a social media management calendar they just came out with, but I use it for graphic design. You can create any kind of animation, anything you want in Canva. So check out Canva. WordSwag is my favorite mobile app. I'm not a huge fan of the Canva app, but WordSwag is my favorite mobile app for editing photos, doing text overlay on photos. Adobe Spark is another great graphic design tool for Instagram stories, for website design, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure you've heard of most of those, but they really are my favorites. And my two favorites for video are Animoto and Typedo. And as you can see here on all the slides, if they have a nonprofit discount, I've included a link right to the nonprofit discount page. Animoto is really like video for dummies. It's so easy to use and so fantastic. You can create a montage of still photos, static photos. You can create a montage of video clips. It's really pretty great. I like it a lot. Okay. I want to leave you with this. I reiterated it. I just want to reiterate it because I told you before, digital storytelling connects the dots for your supporters. It connects the dots. It helps them know you, like you, and trust you so that you can then ask them to take an action on your behalf. Okay. And here is the text number for the workbook. I'm going to take questions now. So let me see. I've got the chat. It's been buzzing, the Q&A. All right, let's see. The very first question. Okay. Oh, is there another way to get it apart from on a text? Just send me your email. Let me send, because yeah, actually I should have said it's not international. Email. Just send me an email to julia@jcsocialmarketing.com. I just put that in the chat. And I'm happy to send that to you. Okay. This is a great question, Sarah. What is your thoughts on using real photos versus stock photos? Do we need to mention if it's a stock photo? So if you purchase it, you don't need to mention it's a stock photo. So if you look at my blog, every single photo is a stock photo, unless it's a photo of me. So you don't need to necessarily say that it's a stock photo, but you do need to be careful that you're not using really horrific, like very stereotypical or very cheesy stock photos. So you kind of have to walk a fine line. I think a great website, I'm going to put this in the chat too, is called Unsplash. They are a fantastic website for stock photos. Getty Images is another one for free stock photos. I would kind of stay away from it. You also have to really make sure with stock photography that if you're using free stock photography based on like Creative Commons, the Creative Commons license, some of those photos, they specify you can't use them for commercial purposes. So you can't use them to promote or market or fundraise. So just make sure you read the fine print. But sometimes purchasing great stock photography really can work for your organization. I know Amira, Pexels is good, says Christy. I know a lot of organizations that I work with that can't show their kids. They use a lot of like backs of heads and beautiful graphics and, they kind of work it out, but just make sure it is not a cheesy photo. I mean, we wouldn't do that anyway, right? Okay. Let me see these questions. Do you recommend any being on camera training? Well, okay. So I think it depends what you're trying to do. Certainly if you're doing Facebook Live, you do want to maybe do some bullet points or some practicing around being on camera. If you're doing an Instagram story, it's 5 seconds. I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're really worried about things like live streaming or doing a really long video, I would just practice. The key really is authenticity. You don't want to script everything out. You don't want it to be too scripted. You don't want to sound too trained. You do kind of want to sound authentic, but you do want people to be comfortable in front of the camera. So I don't think you need to get formal training, although I have heard that taking improv classes can really help your confidence on camera. And I'm actually looking into that in 2020. So if anyone actually has a great course or a great podcast or any kind of great on-camera training that they recommend, put it in the chat. I'd be happy to share it out. All right, Stephanie, how do you capture the photo and video content if you're not a photographer, or you aren't able to pay a professional photographer, and during COVID when it's hard to get in front of people? Well, where's my phone? We all have these, right? I mean, this is a Google Pixel. It takes better pictures than my digital camera ever did. So what I do recommend is investing like literally $10 into a tripod, which you can get on Amazon. You don't even really necessarily need a light if you have natural light. If you can't take pictures of other people, you're going to have to entice them to somehow take pictures or selfies of themselves. So what I've seen work during COVID, I saw a museum that had all of their employees they did an Instagram takeover. All of their employees posted videos of what their work from home looked like. They didn't have to share their kids if they didn't want it. You know, a lot of photos of dogs, a lot of photos of laptops, a lot of photos of outside, but it just really helped humanize them. And they didn't have a photographer taking these pictures. They just had their staff members, or their staff member's partner, or the staff member's teenager, or whoever it was in the house taking these pictures. So, you know, we really just need to figure out like how we can get these visuals. I haven't done a photo shoot since my God, probably 2 years ago. I just reuse a lot of the photos that I have, and I create a lot of graphics on Canva with text overlay and with stock photos. And that's really what I do. So we can't get away from the visuals. We just have to get a little bit more creative. Okay, examples of performing arts organizations who do a great job with the hook. Yes, actually, there's a museum and arts organization social media managers group on Facebook. If you email me, anonymous attendee, I put my email in the chat. I will be happy to send you that Facebook group link, because there are so many examples of fantastic things going on that I just can't think of at the top of my head. Where I live, I think that the Massachusetts Opera House is doing a great job on social media. I think the hook really is what would be lost if arts organizations are lost at this point. Like, we need to start talking about how dramatic the situation is. But I'm happy to share that Facebook group with you, because that's your people, that's the performing arts organizations group, and they're all sharing awesome stuff in there. Okay, Christy, how do you feel about including a quote or paragraph from a story in the e-newsletter, and then to read more, click here, to direct people to your website? I think that's fine, the including a quote or paragraph and read more, click here, but I don't think it's fine to get donations. You have to ask for donations in the email, because you're only going to get first of all, a percentage opening the email. Then you're only going to get a percentage of that percentage clicking. And then you're only going to get a percentage of that percentage actually donating. So make it explicit, make it easy, and tell me exactly what you want me to do. Especially if I'm reading the email on a phone, I need to know what you want me to do. I need to know where this click is going to lead me. Is it a video? Is it a blog post? Is it a donate page? So I would just be as explicit as possible. Quality over quantity, but also that we should be sending out emails more than once a quarter. It feels like people get overwhelmed with emails. What do you think is the happy medium? People get emails because 90% of the emails we get are garbage and crap, right? That's why we get overwhelmed. So we have to start writing better emails, have to start sending a 2-paragraph story with a photo and just talking to our supporters like they're our friends, saying, we really thought you would enjoy this update, or we wanted to brighten your day, or we really wanted to share this milestone with you. Because we can't think of our donors like ATMs. We can't think of email like a transactional tool. We have to think of it as building relationships with the people at the other end of the email. And that's why we hate email. I mean, let's just be real about that. Okay, Janine, can we tweak Details and names. We've been around for 65 years and have a ton of stories, but many now have been passed down from person to person. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you could just use the first name and then, change the details. And social media, I don't think you really need to say names and identifying details have been changed. You might want to do that if you have a long video or if you have it on your website. But if you look at, Janine, I'm going to put this, if you look at what Amira Incorporated does, Plumber Youth Promise, those are two organizations I've worked with. One is a foster care agency, and they never share details and names unless the person is 21. But they still manage to do a great job storytelling, and you don't know anything about the person. You just know about the story. So I completely think you can do that. All right. Photo question follow-up. Is there wisdom? Okay. I've got to drink. Hold on. Regarding using the same photos over and over to establish a visual brand versus regularly using new to us photos for variety. Okay. So I don't think you should use the same photos over and over, but I think if they all have the same kind of feel, maybe use the same font, maybe use the same filter, Amira, I just keep going back to Amira. There's just a perfect example of this. All of their photos are designed to make you seem calm and feel calm. And they're all very kind of gauzy looking. They're not sharp and in your face. They use the same fonts. So I think having a visual brand that way, but I don't know about using the same photos. Although I have used the same photos now for 2 years and no one has said anything to me. So I just think we think we're more interesting than everybody else does. And I also think that if someone sees the same photo twice, they're not even going to remember, but they're not going to call you out on it. So I think we overthink this. It does help to be consistent. Don't worry about using a fantastic photo over and over again, because I guarantee you people are really not going to remember, or it's not going to bother them if it's a great photo. How do you measure the value of social media valuation for corporate sponsors? Well, this is too much for me to answer in just 1 minute, but the value of social media ties back into your goals. Now, if you have a corporate sponsor for your virtual event, what we used to always do, remember when we had events and we'd take the sponsor's logo and we'd slap it on the website and we'd put it on a t-shirt and then we would just put it on social media, like just the logo, and say, thank you to Salem 5 Bank for sponsoring our event. No one wants to see that because your supporters don't want to see that. Salem 5 Bank doesn't get anything out of it, and you don't get any social media traction from that. So why not have a photo of the sponsor or a little video of the sponsor talking about why they are donating and what it means to them and how many years they've donated and their family has donated, whatever their story is. We have to start looking at social media from the perspective of the user and not from what's easiest for us and not from what we want to share. Like, it's not about our agenda. It's about what your supporters and your audience want to see. And they want to see stories and photos. So I think we can flip the whole corporate sponsorship benefits sheet on its head and really make it a better experience for everybody. All right. How important is it to individualize emails versus sending bulk? I don't know. I don't send individual emails, but it depends on your mailing list and it depends what you're asking people to do. But if you can add a name into that email, if you can make that person at the other end of the email feel like you're talking directly to them. So that's all in the writing, that's who it's from, and that's in the personalization. But we can't get away from sending bulk emails. I mean, if our email lists are several hundred people, you're not going to send an individual email, but just try to make it as personalized to the donor as possible, not necessarily the individual. All right, one more question. I see everyone's getting off. It's just 1 o'clock. Thank you all so much. I want to answer this question because this is actually the best question to wrap up on. Any advice for how to convey the importance of digital storytelling in a small organization where I'm the one responsible for communications, but removed from the actual work? I have a story for you. And the others who do the work and know the stories to tell are tech phobic and do not engage with social media even in their personal lives? I feel like I need this question put on a poster. I get this question all the time. So anonymous attendee, you are not alone. You are not alone in this. I would be willing to bet that half the people on this webinar are suffering from this exact affliction. Really quickly, I worked at an organization where my office, I was the development director, my office was in a completely separate building. And everything was very confidential. And people were very concerned about their clients' confidentiality, as they should be. So I had to build a rapport with each individual program officer. And I knew the ones that were going to help me, and I knew the ones that weren't going to help me. And you probably do too. I also had to really work to get support from the executive director, because I knew if the executive director did not believe in this, then it was never going to be a priority, and they were never going to help me get these stories. So what you want to do is get a partner, get a staff member who believes in you, get an executive director or higher up that believes in you, and then share examples. So people are scared of what they don't know and what they can't see. But if you can share examples like from this presentation or from your own life or from email, from social media, and say, this is what other organizations are doing, and it really works, and their donors love it. And it looks like they raised a bunch of money here in this Facebook fundraiser. And it looks like this post got a lot of engagement. I think we could do this. What are some of your ideas? What have you been seeing? So trying to get as much empowerment as you can, but people that don't see the value in digital tools, it's sort of like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, do you just have a landline? Do you use Netflix? Do you use Amazon? Do you have a cell phone? Because you're using digital tools every single day, whether or not you're, posting on Facebook or tweeting. So I think just really trying to share examples of things that you think your organization could do, and then giving really clear, like asking really clear questions and going to each individual person for help. So it takes time. There's not going to be sort of like a silver bullet answer for that, but it takes a lot of time. And I've written a lot of blog posts on this, so I'd be happy to email you some more resources about getting buy-in at your organization. It's a huge, huge, huge topic. Okay, so I know I've gone over. Samantha, thank you so much. I know I went over a little bit, but there's so many great questions and so much great material to cover. So thank you so much again.
Not a worries, and thank you so much for joining us. I think that everybody's left feeling creative and inspired and ready to craft their messages. Just a reminder before we sign off, there will be a 3-question survey at the end of this presentation. It's anonymous, and we would love it if you could share your thoughts about the session. Your feedback helps us shape our conferences in the future, and we can also give Julia all the wonderful feedback that I'm sure that you have for her. I just want to remind you that our next session will be in an hour, led by Alice from Bengage, as she dives into how to make your communications accessible and inclusive. So this includes typography and colors and fonts and all those fun things for people that maybe have a sight disability or someone who's colorblind. So join us for that session. It'll be very practical, and it's also CFRE accredited. So we will see you in an hour. Julia, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, I do love Janine's little 6-word story about herself. Janine is inspired to create impact. I love that. No, thank you all. Like I said before, email me or email Samantha if you want to get some more resources from me. But I'm so happy to have spent an hour with you today, and happy storytelling.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.